Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Parashat Vayechi, and he lived. A little disclaimer before I start. I want everyone to remember that the Torah is God's living word. So these are proposals. This is my interpretation of my parashat. I recommend that you read it and see what God tells each of you, because His word is going to be so customized for each person. That's just my disclaimer. In Parashat Vayechi, which means "and he lived," we read about Jacob's burial request, his death, and Joseph's death. But it is the life of Jacob and Joseph that have the great importance. The blessings that Jacob bestowed upon his children, and how he wrestled with both God and man, and he prevailed. That's Genesis 32:29. The adversities that Joseph faced and how he kept his faith teaches us that death is not final, and that while our physical bodies perish, our Neshamah lives on, and our actions here create a destiny for those who come after us. I want to start with a little parable. I wanted to summarize what the parasha meant with two different parables. So the first parable, the first story is, and this is something I heard, but then I customized it for us. There were two neighbors, a retired teacher and an insurance salesman. They each planted a tree in their backyard. The retired teacher gave his tree enough water, but didn't always give the tree a lot of attention. His tree looked good. It looked okay. The insurance salesman would give his tree plenty of water, vitamins. He would even add mulch to keep it nice and warm, and always gave it his full attention. His tree was full, very green and lush. One night, there was a storm, and there were very strong winds. The next day, they both ran out to look at their trees. The retired teacher, his tree was standing firm with no damage. The insurance salesman's tree was uprooted and totally destroyed. The insurance salesman turns to the teacher and says, "I don't get it. We both planted our trees at the same time. I gave my tree everything it needed. I gave it all my attention, and no offense. But you barely paid attention to your tree. So why was mine uprooted?" The retired teacher turned around, smiled, and responded and said, "You gave your tree everything it needed. It didn't have to work for it. You made it easy for it. I gave my tree only an adequate amount of water and let its roots search for more. And because of that, its roots went deeper, and that made its position stronger. My tree was better prepared to survive." In case you're wondering, my interpretation of this parable is, the retired teacher is God. He gives us gifts. He gives us enough. And we'll get to that later on. And the salesman is, of course, the world that wants to give you everything, so you do nothing and perish. But other people would think it's about parenting, which it kind of is, because God is our Father. Well, let's talk a little about Joseph. So Jacob and Rachel, like the insurance salesman, gave Joseph everything. Joseph was Jacob's favorite. He was the apple of his eye, and his brothers knew it, and the favoritism planted a discord among Jacob's sons, and they became exceedingly jealous of Joseph, to the point that they staged his death. They wanted his death. And sometimes we let our feelings get the best of us at the moment. Had Joseph not been sold into captivity, he may not have become the man that Hashem destined him to be. The man that would be sold as a slave in Egypt and unfold Hashem's plan for Bnei Israel. And Hashem revealed this to Abraham in Genesis 15:13, when he said to Abraham, "Know for certain that your seed will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and they will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. So in a way, Joseph was that pioneer that God sent out that would bring his whole family and then carry out God's plan for our people. God allowed the bad things to happen to Joseph because it is during our storms, our pain, our darkness, and our captivity that our character is refined and our integrity is tested. We hear Hashem clearly during our storms, and we see the world for what it truly is. It is during our time alone, when we can't lean on our mother or our father for protection and provision, that we realize Hashem is all we need and He provides. A life of privilege and comfort doesn't allow our roots to search for a deeper connection, a firm foundation. It doesn't make our position stronger, and it does not equip us for survival. But Joseph was aware that God had a plan for him, and we see that clearly in his response to his brothers when he said to them, "Yes, you planned evil against me. God planned it for good, in order to bring about what it is this day, to preserve the lives of many people." That's Genesis 50:20, in case you want to read it. While many people will become bitter as they go through adversity, Joseph became compassionate, and we saw that the moment his brothers admitted their failure and demonstrated their fear of Joseph's retaliation. And what did Joseph do? He embraced them and demonstrated unconditional love. He didn't let the world and his adversity tear him down or make him into something that he wasn't meant to be. I propose, this is my interpretation, that Joseph received revelation of God's plan, and that was reflected in the names he picked for his sons. Manasseh, which means God has caused me to forget my father's house, and Ephraim, which means God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. When Jacob, Joseph's father, elevated Ephraim over Manasseh, he was in a way revealing to us that what Hashem wants for us is for us to engage and confront the land of our affliction, to confront adversity so that we can transform it and overcome it. That is just my proposal. During times of adversity, we too should remember. And when we feel that maybe the world is a little hard on us, or maybe we don't have enough, I want us to remember one thing. And this is Proverbs 37:7-9. 2 things I ask of you. Do not refuse me before I die. Keep falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but feed me with my allotted bread, lest I become satisfied and deny you and say, who is Adonai? Or lest I become poor and steal and profane the name of my God. I propose that good fruit comes from good trees, from a good tree. And despite the favoritism, Jacob and Rachel did a good job instructing Joseph in the ways of Hashem. And we see that in the fruit of Joseph's actions. He trusted in God and didn't defile himself, although he was in Egypt. The land that was infested with idolatry, it was a morality depraved land. But Joseph did not allow himself to indulge in the sin that surrounded him. He could have easily given in to Potiphar's wife. A young man at his age probably would not have resisted, but he didn't defile himself. But I want to talk a little bit now about Jacob, because the 2 main characters that spoke to me were Joseph and how he held up his head high, and no matter how many times he fell and scraped his knees, and I think Shamash Brian could relate to that. No matter how many times he fell and scraped his knees and scraped his face, he got up and he knew that God was there. Although his father wasn't there, God was there. His father. Let's talk about a little bit about our patriarch, but I want to do it with a parable. There was once an old man who lived in the wilderness alone. Every day the old man would go up with 2 buckets to fill them with water from the river. 1 bucket was new and always brought back all the water that the man had placed in it. The new bucket was proud of his accomplishments. The other bucket was old, it had dents and a small crack in it. It would bring less than half of the water that the old man placed in it. And after a while, the cracked bucket spoke to the old man as he filled it with water, and he said, I'm ashamed of myself. I'm imperfect, I'm broken, and I continue to fail you. I can only bring back a little under half a bucket of water. I'm so ashamed of myself. And the old man smiled and responded, did you notice that there are flowers on your side of the path and not on the new bucket's side? I have always known about your flaws. So I planted seeds on your side of the path trusting that you would water them daily. And I have used those flowers to decorate my table and fill the house with a beautiful aroma on my Shabbats. The aroma was perfect for my Havdalah. Without your crack, without your flaws, I would not have enjoyed so much beauty. Even in our imperfections. And why is this relevant to to Jacob? Both. Jacob was imperfect. A lot of people say that he stole the birthright. Personally, I propose that Esau despised his birthright, and it was a fair deal because a deal's a deal. But I'm just me. Even through our imperfections, Hashem has a purpose for us. He has faith that we will water the seeds that He has planted. Hashem is the architect, the engineer that made us all, and He knows us better than anyone else. By now you have guessed, I'm hoping, that the old man was Hashem, and the cracked pot was any one of us. The old cracked pot is also our patriarch Jacob. Jacob, like you and I, had many imperfections, yet how perfect were his imperfections. He didn't give up. He wrestled with both God and man and prevailed. Genesis 32:29. He loved so deeply that he was willing to serve Laban for Rachel for 14 years. How many of you would do that for the one that you chose and is sitting by your side right now? Maybe not too many. Jacob reveals that his love for Joseph can only be surpassed by the love of Hashem, when he said, I'm about to die, but God will be with you and bring you back to the land of your ancestors. That's Genesis 48:21. He loved Joseph so deeply that when he saw Ephraim and Manasseh, he claimed them as his own. And he said, now your two sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, shall be mine. Ephraim and Manasseh will be mine, no less than Reuben and Simeon. Genesis 48:5. Jacob blesses Joseph with double portion, and Ephraim and Manasseh are each will become a tribe. Jacob Avino Lome. Till this day we bless our sons, just as he did to Ephraim and Manasseh. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. May Hashem bless you and safeguard you. May Hashem illuminate His countenance for you and be gracious to you. May Hashem turn His countenance to you and establish peace for you. The next time that you find yourself in the middle of a storm, remember Hashem's promise in Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have in mind for you, declares Adonai, plans for shalom and not calamity, to give you a future and a hope. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.